Supporters of Britain's stay in the European Union lead those supporting an exit by about 12 points or so. That's according to a Commerce poll by the Daily Mail. That poll indicated support for staying within the Union at 51%. Those who wanted to leave, 39%. 10% of those polled, however, were still undecided. This poll, however, does note that the Remain lead over the Leave party had narrowed by 6 points since the last poll in January. Earlier on, the British Prime Minister David Cameron said leaving the European Union would put British jobs at risk. He was supported by more than a third of the country's biggest companies, who have all signed a letter putting forward the economic merits of remaining within the EU. But the London Mayor, Boris Johnson, who presides over one of the world's preeminent financial centres, maintains the argument that the UK should leave the EU in order to get the change that it wants. Right then, let's answer a simple question. Does any of this actually matter to you if you're an observer of these developments in Africa? Let's find out. Isidoro is an investment manager with Nairobi-based Site and Investments, is with me in studio right now. Let me put that argument to you, Maurice. Why should anyone in East Africa, or Sub-Saharan Africa for that matter, really care about this very public divorce in the making between the UK and the EU?
Thank you, Rama. If you look at the East African especially, and again going to the Sub-Saharan, they should really watch closely what's going on between the EU and the UK. Because if you look at the stage where we are also advancing in terms of regional integration. East African countries have principally agreed in terms of harmonizing their fiscal and taxation policy. And again, we are seeing some levels of mistrust again with the EU, which again reflecting in East African countries. We are seeing Tanzania a bit like slow in terms of agreeing to harmonize such policies with other East African countries. So there are a lot more lessons to be learned in terms of what's going on in the EU. And if you look at again, mistrust comes out very key, and again, economic imbalances in terms of different partners in that such trading blocs comes out very key. So for the countries that are pushing towards monetary integration and again fiscal policy integration, what's happening in EU remains a key lesson they're supposed to learn, so that they could forge now forward in terms of the regional integration that we're pushing, agenda that they're pushing forward.
Let's look at the hard numbers here. Assuming that these two parties do split, it will change the trade relationship between the UK and the EU. But does it have a direct effect on us guys in terms of trade and FDI flows from the UK into African economies?
If you look at, if it succeeds that now there's a divorce between these two, between the Britain and the EU, what we are going to see again, if you look at the history of Britain, these are countries that again have lost, like in terms of preferential, in terms of the trading to other large trading blocs. And again, these are countries that will now be forced to go and start working on its economic policies so that it gains its traditional position. So we are likely to see a more of like a reduced FDI from such zones. And again, we are more likely to see a country that now will be more aggressively again working to gain other trading blocks, and we are likely to see most battle zone will majorly be in Sub-Saharan Africa. Because if you look at the major economic powerhouse in the EU, have really struggled with fought the UK in terms of getting attractive attractive trade partners, which we are likely to affect Sub-Saharan African countries.
Indeed, immigration, of course, is also another key issue at the heart of the package of reforms that David Cameron is trying to push through. Is the UK economy better off with a lot less immigration, especially from Africa? What do the numbers say on this?
If you look at some of the issues that are central to this divorce, Rama, they are mainly the immigration is one of them, and part of the part of the reason that Britain is pushing ahead is that there are a lot of immigrants coming from the EU countries, especially if you look at the UK Office of National Statistics. Between 2004 and 2010, they are reporting about 520,000 people of Polish descent that have now settled in the UK. And again, now part of this, one thing that they are working out is so that they stop economic immigration, because they are feeling like these migrants are taking benefits that's supposed to be majorly for the UK citizens.
But at the end of the day, Maurice, isn't that a bit hypocritical? I mean, at the end of the day, no economy is an island, especially in today's world with global supply chains and integrated markets for capital and labor. Isn't the UK being a bit hypocritical here in saying that we should actually reduce or essentially end immigration altogether?
If you look at it, the globalization and also the way how the people work nowadays is supposed to be like the free movement of goods and services, free movement of capital, free movement of labor. And if you look at this now, it forces countries now to spell as an area that they can do better so that all these economies stand to benefit. But if you look at the Britain, the reason they're advancing ahead is like these are countries that have lost attractiveness in terms of competitiveness compared to other EU nations, and that's why now they are curbing more of the benefit that are now going to other East Africa, to other EU member nations, so that they could benefit themselves. But this is supposed to be more a question of competitiveness and free flow of factors of production so that they could advance economic growth going forward.
Indeed, we'll leave there for the time being. Isidoro from Site and Investments, thank you for your time this evening.